Welcome to the Friday edition of the Brew. Today, Paulina Likos is joining Molly and me. And guess what we're going to talk about? First thing, Bitcoin on the move. Number two, he's back. Trump appoints RFK as the Maha Man. How will that impact Big Pharma? And lastly, is the Fed shifting its focus? Let's get into this and more after the bell.
We did it.
I'm in Yellowstone. I'm finally a cowboy. Oh, where did you get that, Mal? Unbelievable.
It's magic.
It's magic.
Magic.
It does. Paulina, do you agree it sounds a little bit like the Yellowstone Open? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, it kind of does give some Southern vibes.
Yeah.
You say it like this, Lex. You say it like this. It's giving Yellowstone.
All right, Paulina, let's get to it. You have more serious and important things to talk about.
Yeah, right.
How are you, Paulina? Good? Another Friday on the books.
Yep, doing great. Ready to get the weekend on.
All right, guess what? This Friday, the one we're in, is getting close to Thanksgiving. I think Thanksgiving might be next week, if I'm not mistaken. I forget. Crazy, right? Anyway, Bitcoin. So I think I saw it at 88,000 the other day. I don't follow Bitcoin, I must be honest. I mean, I know about it, but I think it was like 88,000. Where is it now? Or should I look that up?
Yeah, right now it's at, the last time I checked, 91,000. So it's moving up, and it's been surging to record highs. Just last week, it was up 30% just in a single week. And what has caused this catalyst? Well, we did see a big Bitcoin surge right after Trump won the presidential election. Now he's, of course, president-elect. We also saw a bunch of crypto ETFs see a bunch of inflows during the post-election. And so why is this? This is because Trump has been kind of giving off some pro-crypto stance vibes.
Oh.
He has embraced cryptocurrencies during his campaign, which is kind of a shift from his previous skepticism on crypto. And we have seen him, accept some crypto donations during his campaign. He's also vowed to transform the US into a crypto capital of the planet, he said, by establishing a Bitcoin reserve. So all of this has helped Bitcoin reach new highs. And there's an assumption among crypto enthusiasts that it could go even higher if more regulatory crypto-friendly, regulations are in place.
Yeah. So interesting, right? I wonder if Molly, are you a crypto gal, by the way?
Just before I answer that,
you seem like you would be. I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm DeFi. That's my MO. So I'm all about DeFi.
Okay.
So Vance also is thought to have had Bitcoin worth $250,000, probably more. Probably, some shell companies here and there. So he's huge Bitcoin. So that's a huge.
So the team, the presidential team is a big Bitcoin team.
Yeah, and Gensler is still calling it. Yeah, they're definitely a Bitcoin team. Gensler, and then as far as the Bitcoin technology behind it, RFK is talking about, and I said this last time, and people will shake their heads, but RFK is. Sorry, not RFK, or I think the team itself is thinking about putting the budget on blockchain technology.
I got you.
On a decentralized ledger.
Yeah. So, Paulina, you mentioned that Trump's seen as a crypto-friendly kind of dude, and did you say he accepted Bitcoin for donations to the campaign? Was that what I heard you say, or did I miss that?
Yes.
Okay.
He accepted cryptocurrency donations for his campaign. This was an attempt to come off as, someone who's going to be crypto friendly in his administration.
Okay, got it. So, I mean, impact wise, this has got to be gigantic for them. Obviously, it is because this sucker's rallied pretty heartily here, right?
Yeah, and that's because investors, they're anticipating that Trump's administration is going to be more favorable to cryptocurrencies because he's already promised some clearer regulations and more flexibility, and plans to remove current SEC chair Gary Gensler, who's known to be pretty strict, has a strong oversight over the crypto industry.
Yeah.
So Trump may establish some regulatory changes that is actually what the crypto industry is looking for. Regulation is important to the industry because they'll be able to have more clarity on how to perceive the asset looking forward.
Love it.
So that's going to be, that clarity is something that investors are looking for.
I love that. So we at Tradier were all ready to kind of launch crypto way back when. And when the SEC got its mitts in it, they didn't provide much clarity. It became a little bit of, what happens if you get the old speeding ticket after the fact because you didn't do it right, and the SEC comes in and puts its heavy hand on it. Molly's going to love this part. And, then you get fined. So we kind of threw it in the back burner, right? Because there wasn't regulatory clarity from the commission at that time. Now, if Trump is going to really streamline that, or at least take the cloudy regulation away, that's a big deal, I think. I think there's a lot of brokerages out there who are probably like, let's sit on our hands on this one for a little bit. We just, they don't want to get nailed on this one. You agree, Mal?
Well, you'll see a consolidation of banking and brokerages themselves. So, and that can happen one of two ways. It can happen buried under paperwork, or you take the wrong step and then you get, you're under
principal's office.
You have a legal fund, right? Yeah. So I think people are really careful versus which, in a free market, you really want steps to be taken less from fear and more into the benefit of the end consumer and the world as a whole. So I think there is some issue there. Yeah. And Gensler, I wonder what Gensler is going to do. He's notoriously labeled, as we know, Bitcoin as a commodity versus security. Dude, I think it's there's Socrates has the list of definition of what money is. So it's scarcity, value, wealth, moderation, utility, and sufficiency. And so scarcity is that one point where when you're printing money hand over fist, and then you have Bitcoin, you really have something there with a 21 million limit. It was just total supply is 21 million coins. So there's a definitive scarcity there, which is interesting. So anyway, I'm interested to see if he stays. But
it sounds like he's not. Right? Is that what you mentioned, Paulina? That he's probably going to be replaced by one of Trump's guys. Which I'm a big fan of less regulation. Did I tell you this? I just realized I was a libertarian.
Did you?
I thought I was a vegetarian. I thought it was something I was eating. And I went for a libertarian thing, and they said, no, that's not food. It has to do with your political stance.
I feel like this is about like a Theo Von moment where you're like, eucalyptus. It sounds like a question. Like, eucalyptus? No, I don't know eucalyptus.
Yeah. So I think I like the libertarian part of this, where get the regulators out of the business. Let the people who create business and create wealth do their thing. Now, look, you got to have some rules. I get that. But you don't need overweening rules. Poor Paulina can't say a word because I'm on a rant. I'm sorry.
No, I like to hear different perspectives.
Yeah, so I realized I was a libertarian after I thought I was a vegetarian, but I'm not a vegetarian. I'm just a libertarian. And I think this is a good start, especially in that market. I'm a fan. We'll find our way, and we'll find out what needs to be regulated along. But let's let it rip, man. I love that. So cool.
And I will just point out that I think there's new interest from the public of how these entities work. So if you look at the SEC and you see the resumes again alongside of who's running things, you'll see that they're very much tied to Sullivan and Cromwell, which is a famous legal firm that, they're all hoping to get hired. So when they make decisions, they don't really want to step on the toes of some of Solomon Cromwell's current clientele, because then they don't get hired. So there's a closed loop there, which we need to take a look at. And I think that things are about to get cleaned up, or at least exposed, and people are going to start taking education in their own hands and Googling how these things work.
Love it. Okay, let's move along. What do you say? Can we go to number 3 first, Paulina? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you why later. Number 3, the Federal Reserve has shifted its focus. So I think you mean more towards employment, I think focusing on that while maintaining some vigilance on inflation. What do you have there?
Yeah, so I think this is an important topic because the stock market and investors, both the, investors that have a lot of money, the institutional investors, as well as the everyday retail investor, they're paying attention to what the Federal Reserve is going to be doing with interest rates, because obviously that has a huge implication to how the market performs. So the Federal Reserve is shifting its focus not away from inflation, but is going to be focusing less on inflation and more towards employment. I think it's important to add that the Fed has a dual mandate to focus on keeping inflation towards its 2% target and maintaining a solid employment rate in the US. So the reasons for the Fed's shift is there has been progress on inflation over the coming years. It has come down significantly from its peak, moving closer to that 2% target. And now the focus is on the labor market. And there has been signs of the labor market softening. The unemployment rate did reach above 4% in June for the first time in a couple years. And now the Fed is kind of trying to balance its dual mandate. It's focusing more towards the employment while it's still monitoring inflation. One of the Fed chairmen had said that if we're going to, focus on the ratios here, 80% of their attention is going to go toward employment and 20% towards inflation. So that's where the Fed's focus is going to be.
What are they going to do to focus on employment, right? So what are the levers? The levers.
Well, one effect we have is, AI on the workforce. So
wait, say that again. How do you use it? What do you mean?
So a lot of major names are having layoffs to replace with artificial intelligence. So that thing's coming. So how do they balance that with that incoming?
But that's going to be problematic for employment then, because AI is going to sort of reduce that, I would imagine, right?
Right, and the optimistic view would be that there will be new jobs that are created in its place. So it's not, that will just be an adaptation is required.
Okay, but it's not a policy move, is it? Do you think, Paulina, is it something that, from a policy standpoint, what can they do besides tinker with interest rates?
Yeah, that's the main tool that they have, right? The monetary policy adjustments. Right. And obviously we know in September they cut the interest rate by 50 basis points. It doesn't seem that they're going to be cutting to that level moving forward. And there might not be as many cuts as we anticipated in the past. But I think that AI is going to be a huge part of monitoring the employment issue, because it is aimed at creating more efficiency in workflow processes. Although its goal is not to, eliminate the entire workforces at companies, the goal is to make work more efficient. But inevitably there could be some layoffs as it relates to AI. And we've seen, as it relates to consumer focused companies, there have been layoffs because there is some tightening happening and cost cutting measures at certain companies. So it could be a matter of the economic cycle. We might see the employment picture get better in 2025. So there's a number of factors to monitor.
Okay, I like it. Very good. Very good.
And I would just like to point out some things that actually Michael Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy, brings up. It's really interesting to hear him talk about the monetary system and hedonic adjustments to CPI, which then lowers inflation. So what does that look like? So his example is you were able to afford a 3-bedroom apartment, but your cell phone looked like the one from the 70s. But now you can only afford a 1-bedroom, but your cell phone is a Zoolander phone. So you still have, there's hedonic adjustments to say, well, that's still the standard of living we're keeping you towards. So is inflation reflecting the correct number is it reflecting the effects that the middle class and lower class are having in their real life? And then you have to look at the S&P index growth, which latest numbers are, Lex, you can corroborate if this is right, 10.5% year over year, in which case if there's growth there, how is that growth happening? That would be an expansion of the monetary system, which is usually between 7 to 10%. So if that's the case, who is losing the fact? So if I invest $1 into the S&P and it grows considerably, where's that growth coming from? From an expansion of the monetary system, in which case when someone goes to buy their coffee, it's equally costing them that increase. And it's that relaying is there's something that's not being quantified there. And so I think that's important to look at as these numbers get tossed around. And then it's about scalar math, and then it goes down to a rabbit hole.
Oh my God. All right, let's move along. Our good friend Paulina has to get going, and this one I like. Right. So do you know what maha is, right? It's as opposed to maga.
Is that like a Wednesday taco?
I always thought, I thought it was like some kind of fish, but maha is Make America Healthy Again. And the Trumpster put in RFK as the dude. He's going to be the guy who's going to make America healthy again. However, the impact could be to big pharma. And here you go, Mal. Let's listen to Paulina tell us about this one, because I know you've got your book on this one. All right, Paulina, have at it. What's going on here?
So we saw some stock market reaction come out of the pharma stocks when the appointment of Robert F. Kennedy, RFK, as the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, as it's often called, so we saw an immediate reaction here from the pharma stocks, particularly those of the major vaccine makers. And this announcement also raised a bunch of concerns around the potential future impacts of the industry. So right when we saw Kennedy's nomination, that triggered a substantial sell-off in the pharma stocks. We saw Pfizer and Moderna, they plummeted like over 5%. Novavax was another, AstraZeneca, BioNTech, they all sold off. Overall, there was more than $8 billion in market value that was evaporated from these vaccine companies on the day of the announcement. So what's the concern here? Well, the first is potential regulatory changes. So as the head of HHS, Kennedy could potentially have authority, to change some regulations. He can appoint different leaders to health divisions. This could lead to changes in drug approval processes, healthcare policies. And he is known to have some controversial stances on vaccines. So his skepticism could influence how vaccine policies are initiated and the overall public perception of vaccines. And obviously, who's going to get hit? The companies that manufacture and make these vaccines.
It's probably hitting them pretty hard, right? No more vaccines for anyone. Oh my God, how about those apples? Go ahead, Marcel.
I like how the FDA and I won't name names. One was Pfizer. Is it Pfizer who they were instructed to produce all of their documentation? They said, we'll do it in 70 years when this generation's gone.
Right.
Oh, great. So yeah, he's been vocal about draining the swamp in the FDA. So we'll have to see what happens there.
This was a really interesting pick. I mean, look at that. This second term for him is already starting out to be just nuts. I love it. But this is an interesting pick. I think RFK's family is all mad at him for accepting it on the Republican side, right? He's a lifelong family Democrat, although the Democrats of his era are way different from the ones now, I think.
Right.
But this is fantastic. I love it. By the way, did you see the big MMA fight over the last weekend?
Yeah. Tyson and
with Kennedy was there. And they're all sitting in the front row. I loved hilarious Kid Rock. Oh my God, it was hysterical. Wasn't even real.
Was it bought?
Yeah, they're all bots.
I feel like Tyson could have thrown a couple swings. I'd watched some slow-mos. I feel like it was a cooked fight.
Oh my God. So Paulina, it's not the end of Big Pharma here. It's just a little bit of a snip in the feet. I mean, it's not even a little bit, I guess. I guess it's pretty big. Do you have any idea what the revenue was from the COVID vaccine I mean, it's had to be astronomical, right?
Oh, I don't know the exact number, but I mean, I think Pfizer, Moderna, these were the pandemic stocks. I don't know if you remember, but there were some stocks that were labeled COVID stocks. Netflix was one of them. And the pharma stocks were in that bunch as well, just because their stocks rose, given that, they were some of the big makers of the vaccines. But to your point, in terms of what to make of these appointments, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and this is causing volatility. Of course, Wall Street doesn't like uncertainty. They want to have a semblance of what's coming next and how this impacts their investments. So, they're saying that this sell-off is overblown. So I think that, and I've been talking to some policy analysts that are in Washington, D.C., and I've been asking about, from the big tech regulatory perspective, what can we anticipate? And a place that we can start is by understanding, the appointments, their perspective on different policies. Like we know RFK, he's a health nut, and he's skeptical on, vaccines. So that's what's creating this sell-off. But we're not going to really know how this sector is going to perform until we get some concrete policies. First, they have to be accepted. Their vote has to go through Congress and the Senate and whatever processes those are. So there needs to be approval first. So I think that Wall Street is jumping the gun a little bit in selling these stocks off.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's probably right. They always overreact. Go ahead. Sorry, Mo.
I might disagree. I think we're
going to think it's going lower?
I think we're going to find I'm sure it'll fluctuate, but I think we're going to find the underbelly of what's been going on. And I think
that's a little different though.
Yeah, well, I also think that there's, even if with legislation, I think with Elon up there, I think they're going to be running this more into the digital world, and they'll be creating avenues. Like a business? Like a business. As he's been vocal about, I think they're going to create open communication chains between citizens and the government itself. And so I think they'll be able to leverage that against otherwise, lifers in Congress who can, when you look at the monetary injections of lobbyists and what companies those are coming from, I think that'll start to balance out. Plus there will be a lot of exposure and reporting from the inside on what's been happening. So I would be bearish on Big Pharma at this point.
Look at you, the little Miss Bear. I didn't know that.
Not giving advice.
Not giving advice. So I looked it up. Big Pharma raked in. Are you ready? Drum roll. $90 billion in profits. And
Pfizer, I think, was half that.
Yeah, with the COVID-19 vaccines, $90 billion with a B. That's pretty big.
Without any testing. Well, not much testing.
That buys a lot of tacos. Let me just tell you that.
It does. Yeah.
A lot of tacos. Okay, awesome. Good. Well, we're gonna have to have a Trump appointment on every week or something, man. We're so all over the place. I love it. All right, Paulina. Well, thanks so much for this. This was a great one. Really interesting. You have a great weekend. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
You're kind of a quasi crypto New Yorker now,
No, I'm still Philly all the way.
All right, good. I met some Philly people on my Bahama trip when I was down in the Bahamas.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, we jumped on a meeting and he pops open his webcam and he's on a massive yacht. I'm like, what? Aren't you supposed to be working? Yeah, so I live vicariously through you, Lex.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't my yacht. It was a friend's yacht. It was nice. What can I say? I caught a fish too. So that was fun. Okay, great to see you. Have a great weekend. Be safe. And if I don't see you for the dinner, you have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
All
I will
right.
see you later.
That's a wrap.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.